Good evening. Welcome to the program produced and presented by the Agency for Public Information. I'm your host, Kathy Rose. This evening's program will feature reports on the land distribution ceremony at Adelphi, the Mission Milagro program, which is now in full gear, and Dr. Tawana Brown Caesar talks about the Caribbean Health Education Foundation, CHEF. We'll be right back with the details after the news.
Good evening and thank you very much for joining us for Newswatch. I'm Ashisia Sam. Regional delegates are gathered here this week for a 3-day workshop focusing on building resilience in the tourism and fisheries sectors. The forum, which is being coordinated by the OECS Commission, began on Monday, July 12 and will end on Wednesday, July 15. Director, Social and Sustainable Development Division, OECS Commission, Mr. Bentley Brown, said the workshop is of critical importance.
Our work this week can therefore contribute to maintaining stable economies and providing for economic development and enhancing livelihoods, which are critical concerns for OECS member states. Throughout the next 3 days, we will seek to create a forum for you the practitioners, to share your experiences and increase your knowledge on climate change impact on your sectors, and also for you to explore best practices for building resilience at the sectoral, organizational, and community levels. I therefore encourage you to work together and ensure that this workshop is a success.
The workshop, which will enable fisheries and tourism stakeholders to better collaborate and to participate in activities that contribute to the sustainability of the use of coastal and ocean resources. The aim of the workshop is to increase the knowledge of key tourism and fisheries stakeholders on climate change impacts on their sectors and the best practices for building resilience at the sectorial, organizational, and community levels. The workshop is targeting personnel from the Ministry of Tourism and Fisheries Division, in addition to fisherfolk organization and tourism operators. The event is being held at the Sunset Shores Hotel at Villa. The record of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on women's rights will be examined by the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women on Monday, 20th of July, in meetings that will be webcast live. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one of the 189 state parties to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and so is required to submit regular reports to the Committee of 23 independent experts on how it is implementing the Convention. The committee will engage in a dialogue with a delegation from the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines on questions relating to the promotion and protection of women's rights in the country, and will also hear from non-governmental organizations' representatives. The session will take place in Conference Room 16 at Pelias Destinations in Geneva from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. in St. Vincent. The live webcast can be viewed at http://www.treatybodywebcast.org. Among the possible issues to be discussed are steps to criminalize domestic violence and to broaden its definition to comprise acts of sexual and psychological violence, steps to widen the definition of rape to include any non-consensual sexual acts, measures to prevent and combat trafficking and forced prostitution, regional cooperation to tackle trafficking in women and children, conditions under which legal abortion is available, adverse situation affecting the banana industry and impact on rural women, steps to guarantee the protection of women's rights in de facto unions other than marriage. The OECS Council of Ministers on Tourism Matters met for a second occasion in Grenada on Thursday, July 9. The ministerial meeting was convened under the theme OECS Economic Union Pushing the Tourism Envelope. Some key matters that were discussed at this meeting were the case of travel within the OECS, joint representation of the OECS at the international boat shows, the OECS Network of Excellence for Tourism and Hospitality Training and Education Project, Project, the World Bank Tourism Competitiveness Project, OECS Community-Based Tourism Program, opportunities for collaboration with Martinique and also with Cuba, and Sustainable Destination Alliance for the Americas program. The meeting was held at Radisson Grant Beach Resort in Grenadines, Grenada. In addition to representation from the OECS member states, including Martinique, other delegates from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the Caribbean Tourism Organization, and the Caribbean Tourism and Hotel Association were represented at the meeting as observers. And finally, on this evening's edition of Newswatch, the OECS Commission has begun rolling out a series of videos on issues embracing the lives of the people of the region. The video, which was released for airplay on the Caribbean Broadcasting Union Carib Vision channel on Wednesday, July 8th, features the likely benefits of a more unified region through the historic accession of Martinique to the OECS as an associate member in February 2015. Director General of the OECS, Dr. Didacus Jules, said the video records for history the occasion when Martinique joined the OECS. This feature on Martinique's associate membership of the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean States is one of several initiatives by the OECS Commission to promote dialogue on issues that embrace and enhance the everyday lives of the people of the region. On Tuesday, July 7th, the OECS Commission staff gathered for a viewing of the production ahead of Wednesday's release to the regional public via Carib Vision, which has a presence in 22 Caribbean markets and can also be seen in the diaspora, UK, USA, and Canada. The video is produced by El Shaford Productions. And here's where we end the Newswatch for this evening. I am Ashisia Sam. Stay with us for the rest of our programming. Good evening.
Protecting our marine environment,
our forest, our wildlife for our children.
Pollution of our rivers and beaches, deforestation and overfishing threaten to destroy our biodiversity. Protected areas are set aside by law to protect these fragile ecosystems, which provide us with water, food, electricity, and recreation. Tobago Keys Marine Park, Kingshill Forest Reserve, and Milligan Key Wildlife Reserve are examples of our local protected areas. Be inspired and help preserve what is naturally ours.
Let's value nature. Protected areas, protect life.
A message from the Environmental Management Department and the National Parks, Rivers and Beaches Authority.
Welcome back. 23 people in the constituency of South Windward now have the opportunity to purchase lands which they've been living on for decades. Offer letters were officially handed out to them at an official ceremony held at the Adelphi Secondary School later last week. This report is by Shanna Daniel.
When this government came into office in 2001, the mantra was always to ensure that people who have lived and occupied state lands can get title to those lands. And we have been doing that since 2001, and today is the turn for you, the residents in Adelphi. And I want to say to you that we are offering you these lands today at a whopping 50 cents per square foot.
Turning dead capital to live capital is the catchphrase that Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonsalves has coined to describe this program being executed by the Ministry of Housing, Informal Human Settlements, Lands and Surveys and Physical Planning. 23 people from the South Windward constituency who have lived on and occupied state lands at Adelphi for decades have been given the opportunity to purchase those lands at 50 cents per square foot. The 23 recipients who officially received their offer letters to purchase the housing lots have now joined scores of Vincentians who have benefited from this government program. Speaking at the handing over ceremony at the Adelphi Secondary School on July 9th, Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said that the program is a demonstration of Christianity in action.
We read the book of Luke, and the question is posed, who is our neighbor? The neighbor is not the lawyer who passed the gentleman who was injured, he was robbed and injured. Nor the Levite, the bureaucrat, nor indeed the priest. A Samaritan who was of a group, not one who was recognized in any high place. The Samaritan stopped, known to us as the Good Samaritan. He ensured that his wounds were clean, took care of him, took him to an inn, paid the innkeeper to keep him, and say if he wants anything more, please give unto him, and when I pass back, I will cover the bill. You must have a government which acts out the principles of the Good Samaritan in the book of Luke, or you can't be a government. It doesn't mean that when we so act, that individually, that Ralph or the humble African is not a sinner. We are all sinners in quest of redemption. Notice the programs which we are doing. We are building timber houses, 1 bedrooms for instance. And in cases where people need a toilet, or a room add-on properly, or put in a ramp, we do that. Montgomery has done over 110 units already under the Lives to Live. How is that financed? That is financed through Petrocarib. The opposition said they would unsign Petrocarib. It is the same Petrocarib that provides the $6 million annually for the Farmers Support Company, which gives the farmers, last year over 1,000 of them were lent money at 2% interest.
Prime Minister Gonsalves went on to point out that housing is a human right, and as such, his government will continue to ensure that quality housing is both available and affordable to the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
We say that the state, that is to say the government, which is a central arm of the state, that the government must act as a vital facilitator to ensure that all of its citizens have quality housing at affordable prices. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are doing it in such a rapid manner that countries which are far more endowed with financial resources marvel at what we are doing in the area of housing in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The statistics show that between 2001 and 2012, when the census data were taken, that the housing stock increased by in excess of 25%, more than 1/4. And as a result, the number of persons per household on an average fell to just 3 per household. The numbers are falling in households. People have more space. Of course, some have more space than others. I'm talking about the average in the country. And when we started our term in office, more than half of the people had pit toilets. Now, 3/4 have flush toilet with water. I am talking to you about what is happening before our very eyes. We have moved from Watlandab to boat house to wall house and mansions. We have moved from houses with hall and chamber and kitchen and toilet outside. The same persons in large numbers have moved to 2 and 3 bedroom houses with water toilet, water closet, with dining room and living room and porch. And watch this, since 2001 the number of vehicles have increased by more than 3 times, from under 8,000 to in excess of 25,000, and people have to put the car in a porch. You hear me? These things are before our eyes, and they want to tell me St. Vincent's not going nowhere. Yeah? Oh, of course we have difficulties. Of course we have challenges. This is not a country with a lot of financial resources, but we are rich in people resources. And that's what we are using and building. And we're using our brains. And in order to make sure, listen, inheritance, one of the reasons why you see so many people coming out of poverty and moving and getting a better standard of living, you think it's because they inherit property from the family? Only few people inherit. They're getting there because the world, and this country in particular, knowledge is increasingly the basis of wealth. Knowledge. You hear me? Yes. What you have inside of your head and what you can do with your hands. And that is why, for instance, why we give all the children in the primary school laptops and also in the secondary school. And that's why we have universal secondary education. And I'm giving snapshots. That's why we have opened the doors to 10 secondary schools and expanded several others, including the one here. Yes.
In this competitive world we live in, without an education we are nothing. Don't depend on your parents' earnings. Ignorance is a curse thing, so we got to think what's smarter. Think what's smarter. We got to work much harder. Work much harder. We got to work together. Work together to stand for this vast agenda. Vast agenda.
The Honorable Montgomery Daniel, Minister of Housing, stressed that the area of housing has been given much attention by his government since it came to office in 2001.
The ministry over the last 14 years has delivered to Vincentians approximately 1,300 houses all across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The data will show under the last administration, for 17 years, they produced 5 houses. But this government in its quest to ensure better housing, established the low and no income housing program, thereby for all categories of persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, be it civil servants, be it young technocrats, be it the bus conductor, all have benefited tremendously under this housing program that this government has established since 2001. Therefore, if one travels from Fancy or Fitzroy in the north to Campbell in Union Island in the south, there is no doubt that one will be able to see great transformation in terms of the housing stock in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In the area of informal human settlement, the Ministry of Housing, with the assistance of the Physical Planning Department, has been fighting this battle resolutely. That is one of squatting. There is a general tendency of many of our persons to go onto government property and to do as they please. This government, through this ministry, will not accept any levels of squatting in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This government has been working on your behalf to provide land and to provide houses. And there is no need for you to go and squat on any land that you think is government or private land. This government has been providing lands for all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And since we came to government, we have distributed almost 3,900 lots to Vincentians throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And so, that is why I say to you, there is no need for you to go squatting. So, this government has been providing the tools and the formal and genuine development for housing here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Today, here in South Windward, we are distributing 23 lots of lands in this area.
Meanwhile, Sir Vincent Beach, who is chairman of the Housing and Land Development Corporation and who is a former representative of the South Windward constituency, said that he is pleased that the residents of the constituency were finally presented the opportunity to own the lands they have occupied over the years.
Under our laws, the person who owns the land is the person who owns the property. And so when you squat and you build, you take in or have taken a very great risk, because if you do it on private land, the person can come and claim it. And the most you might be able to get is compensation for what you built there, if that at all. But as is often said, government is not a bandit. We are not vagabonds. And any duty of government is to take care and make sure that the populace, the people, get a fair deal and that they should be comfortable. And in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and you hear it when foreigners, when other people from the rest of the Caribbean or from further afield come here and say, but I didn't understand. Look at the quality of the houses that you have here. But we have this urge to always want to own our own homes. And not only own our own homes, but substantial homes. Because it's not easy if you're renting and you get notice that you have to leave. Whether it's a house you're renting or whether it's the land you're renting, you would have built, you're given notice, you have to leave. That means you have to break down, transfer, and build again. But you have security when you own the land. So that it has always been the policy of this administration, this government, ULP government, that it's unfair to persons who have been living on parcels of land for years. They've given birth to children there, maybe grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and yet they do not have the security of tenure, so to speak. You can't go to the bank and say, well, listen, and I've seen it happening many times. People come in and say, well, I have a property that's worth $400,000, but it's built on land that I don't have the title to. You can't go to the bank and say, well, I want to borrow some money on this property and use it as collateral, because you don't own it. The person who owns the land is the person who owns the property. And at Argyle, where we build in the international airport, we had a lot of that. As a matter of fact, we still have a lot of that. You might hear people tell you that we still owe people for lands at Argyle, and it's true. But most of it is because persons who occupy the lands can't bring title to the land, so we can't pay them. Because if you do that, and somebody else comes up with the proper title after, it means that you would have had to pay for the land twice, because you have already paid, and 10 to 1, the person who received it at first wouldn't have the money to be able to refund you. You can go to court, and you can get judgment, and you can expect to get it back, but if the person doesn't have it, you're wasting your time. And so I am satisfied and really grateful that this phase of the Adelphi lands is coming to fulfillment. I want to thank Sir Vincent Beach, who started the process, and Glenn later on. They started, and I have fulfilled the promise here this afternoon. I thank you for having been elected me to serve in this capacity.
For the API, I am Shanna Daniel reporting.
You are viewing a program produced by the Agency for Public Information. After the break, Dr. Tawana Brown Caesar talks about the Caribbean Health Education Foundation, and patients have left the shores of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for medical attention in Venezuela under the Miracle Mission program. Don't go away, we'll be right back.
The following is a message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment.
New snacks on the market. I sure my children love this.
Really? New snacks? Very eye-catching. Look at the amount of sodium or salt in this. I would buy this for my child.
Oh, really? And I bought this too. I never know they pack with so much sodium.
Choose snacks that are less than 140 milligrams of sodium per serving.
Less salt, healthier life.
A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment.
On Thursday, July 9, 14 Vincentians left our shores en route to Vargas, Venezuela, where they will spend the next 2 weeks undergoing treatment for a range of vision problems under the Miracle Mission program, an initiative of the governments of Cuba and Venezuela, but at present being carried out by the government of Venezuela. Cherise John tells us more in this report.
For 11 years, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has benefited tremendously through the Miracle Missions, or as previously referred to, the Vision Now initiative. This program is a joint effort by the government and people of Cuba and Venezuela for the treatment and restoration of one of the most vital senses of the human life, vision. On Thursday, July 9th, a group of 14 patients left the E.T. Joshua Airport on their miracle mission to Venezuela, where they would receive much-needed treatment for various eye ailments. A ceremony was held to mark this milestone occasion where the Honorable Clayton Bergin, Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment, took the opportunity to thank the government and people of Venezuela for their extraordinary contributions to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He also noted that the beneficial relationship between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Venezuela exists as a result of the government's sound foreign policy.
Venezuela, as you know, because of our foreign policy, has been doing tremendous work, a number of things for us. But I am here this morning just to thank the government and the people of Venezuela for the tremendous effort, the contribution that they would have made financially and otherwise towards St. Vincent, the Grenadines, and to our peoples. They have conducted, sometime in April, screening of over 1,000 persons or thereabout. And we have over 500 persons needing surgery on the eyes. But 14 at present have to go to Venezuela because they are at a more advanced stage in their eyes, the situation with their eyes. And so 14 will be leaving this morning to go to Venezuela for treatment. And this miracle mission that is taking place between St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one that, based on the agreement that we signed, would continue for a long time. It shows that the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with its foreign policy, is moving in the right direction. Sound foreign policy that causes you, the people of St. Vincent, to benefit greatly from other countries in the Caribbean and throughout the world. And this is something that we have to continue. And we are hoping that you, the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, would see it fit to help us to continue along that path of development that we are on. So I want to wish you, my fellow Vincentians who are here going off to Venezuela, all the best in the next 2, 3, or 4 weeks that you would be in Venezuela.
The charge of affairs at the Venezuelan embassy, Daliana Guanipa, took the opportunity to thank the healthcare professionals at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital for facilitating the miracle mission process.
Good morning to everyone. We are here today for our first flight of 14 patients to go to Venezuela to undergo the eye surgery. We are very happy. Yesterday was 11 years of miracle missions. Unfortunately, yesterday the plane couldn't come, but today you go in and you will get all the celebration of our 11 years of miracle mission. I take this opportunity to thank you, the government and the people of workers of the Milton Memorial Hospital for all they did for this day to come, all the examinations and that needed to be done before the patients to go to Venezuela. And also happy to inform that this weekend we will start with the medical surgeries at the Milton Memorial Hospital. With this going to be the first time that miracle mission goes out the Venezuela borders. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines going to be the first country that the doctors come and do surgery at the country. The patients we have today, the doctors that came to Venezuela went to different locations. So the patients who go into Venezuela this time, we have people from Baroli, from Beque, from Union Island, from Mesopotamia, and Kingston,
Georgetown
and the
too.
Georgetown, and see, yes, and well, and the help of our sister Ariana Taylor, Cuban nurse, that's going to help us with the patients in Venezuela. Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor. Thank you very much to everyone.
Speaking at the ceremony, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves gave some information on miracle missions since its inception. Prime Minister Gonsalves further thanked the government of Venezuela for their continued assistance through solidarity based on a mature relationship.
The Mission Milagro, the miracle mission, commenced really between Cuba and Venezuela in 2004. St. Vincent and the Grenadines became the first country in CARICOM to have this program, financed by Cuba and Venezuela jointly at the time. In fact, it was in June 2005 when Fidel spoke to me about this program. And shortly after, we had the first set of Vincentians going to Cuba. The Cuban doctors, Cuban facilities. I remember going up just after the first batch of Vincentians went. I went to see them at the Hemingway Hotel. It was a very nice hotel where they were recuperating. Well, they went first for preparation and then did the surgeries and then recuperated there. 2,500 persons were treated under that program. The vast number of them in Cuba. Those who have studied this matter comparatively, they have advised me, and I've tried to read up on it, and you can read up on it too. You have between 3 to 4% of the population which would require surgical interventions with their eyes. We have 110,000 persons roughly. So you're talking between 3 to 4%, you're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 and a little bit. And we did, in the first round, what we call Vision Now. We didn't call it Miracle Mission. And we still call it Vision Now, but the Venezuelans emphasize that this, because it's done there with them, they call it Mission Milagro, and that is how it is, Miracle Mission. But for us, it's still Vision Now. Only now Cuba is not involved directly. It is Venezuela and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And most of that 2,500 went to Cuba, as I said. But the Cubans also had come here and done some surgical work. But it is not on the scale that what the Venezuelan professionals are now going to do here. I was worried at first that we wouldn't have the capacity at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital to do close to 500, which is what the numbers are going to be. I understand 500 have been screened, some are going down to Venezuela, the worst cases. But the majority of them are going to be done here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I mean, I was just thinking of the logistics of screening, not just screening, doing the operations at the theaters which we have, how to structure them and so on and so forth. Even though the Venezuelan professional staff come in, would be a challenge. But very early, the chief medical officer advised me that it is possible to be done, and possible became, yes, it can be done. And the permanent secretary advised, yes, that it can be done. The minister, and this is how we eventually worked the matter through, that we having a lot of the surgeries done here, but those where the advanced problems have to be dealt with in Venezuela. This is an act of remarkable solidarity and generosity by the Venezuelan government. Now, Venezuela and ourselves are enmeshed in multiple relations which are beneficial to both our countries. But in material terms, it's clear that we benefit extraordinarily from Venezuela. We have a mature relationship. We are brothers and sisters. We are part of the Caribbean and Latin American civilization, part of the larger world civilization. But we are all committed, and certainly in the case with Guyana, whatever the rhetoric you may hear on either side, is for international law and peace to prevail. You notice how when we have a dispute in our family, how I discuss it openly and honestly and talk about lowering of the harshness of voices, and let us make sure that we are mature in our relationships, that any difficulty we solve them while at the same time continuing to deepen our beneficial relationships, which is what all of us really want. I wish you all the best in your travels to Venezuela. I wish you Godspeed. I'm sure this morning when you got up, every single one of you would have said your prayers and thank Almighty God for all our blessings. I certainly did so in my own case, and I also prayed for you because I know you're leaving today. And I hope everything goes well. You have very good professionals. You have a friendly country which you're going to. Godspeed, and thanks to everybody in the Ministry of Health for doing a fantastic job, and thank especially President Maduro. We revere the memory of Hugo Chavez and of Fidel, Fidel is still with us, who started this miracle mission, what we call Vision Now. Thank you very much. God bless.
Reporting for the Agency for Public Information, I'm Sharish John.
The following is a message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment.
I brought plums for break today. Plums? Where's the salt? At school we don't eat fruits with salt. I don't think it is good. Love some salt. No, it's better without. Less salt, healthier life.
A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment.
The Caribbean Health Education Foundation, CAGF, is a U.S.-based non-profit organization. They propose to execute a Caribbean Kidney Screening Education Program, CKSEP, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. While diabetes and hypertension are the two major causes of chronic kidney disease, CKD, in the Caribbean and worldwide, very little is known regarding the prevalence of CKD here. We'll get a better understanding of this in this interview with Communications Officer in the Ministry of Health, Mrs. Nika Anderson Isaacs, and Dr. Tawana Brown Caesar.
So we're here with Dr. Tawana Brown Caesar, and she is the local coordinator for the CHEF program. And she will be telling us a little bit more about what the CHEF program is and a little bit more about her role in the program.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's the Caribbean Health Education Foundation. This is a charitable organization based in the United States, and their role is really starting to look at chronic kidney disease in the region, in the OECS. Now, they have a Caribbean Kidney Screening and Education program that I saw some data late in January of this year, and I asked if it's something that could be emulated in St. Vincent. Now, as you know, every now and then you hear about chronic kidney disease, and we hear patients on dialysis or patients requiring treatment for kidney disease, but we don't have any data in St. Vincent and the Grenadines about the prevalence of chronic kidney disease or kidney disease as a whole in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I think it's important, if we want to plan for the management of chronic kidney disease and have it at a stage where it's actually treatable, we must have an idea of what we're treating and what is the burden that we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So this group has been screening patients who are at risk for developing chronic kidney disease. And they did some very good work in St. Kitts and Nevis last year or the year before. And I met with one of the nephrologists associated with the group, and I asked them, is this something that you guys could have done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? About March, they agreed to have this project come to St. Vincent, and we've been working tirelessly since then to have it coordinated. And I think we're on the cusp of having something exciting come to St. Vincent in terms of kidney disease and the screening for kidney disease.
With them coming here, what does this mean for Vincentian? How can Vincentians benefit from this kidney screening process that is about to take place here?
So first of all, persons who are at risk for kidney disease. So the goal is to screen between 1,500 and 2,000 persons at risk for kidney disease. Their goal is in the next 5 to 15 years to screen about 25,000 persons in the region, to have data on that in the region. St. Vincent's target population that would represent, would be a good estimate, would be about 1,500 persons, but you know, they catered for a little bit more. Who can be screened, or who meets the criteria for screening? 1, 18 years and older. 2, you have a personal history of diabetes. 3, you have a personal history of hypertension. You have hypertension or diabetes. You have a family history of chronic kidney disease, and by family history, I mean first-degree relative, mother, father, brother, sister. All right, family disease. If you have a family history of diabetes or hypertension, you also meet the criteria. Persons who have lupus, persons with sickle cell disease, persons with HIV. That's the network catchment. In the region, based on the Caribbean Renal Registry, a part of which we are just becoming a member, diabetes and hypertension, they are by far the commonest causes of chronic kidney disease and end-stage renal disease, leading persons to have dialysis. So persons out there, if you meet the criteria, if you're already on dialysis, then you know you have kidney disease. That's not the goal of screening.
Right.
Screening is to catch persons before they have symptoms, all right? And that's when you want to get them, when it's less expensive to treat. So that's the goal of this.
Okay, who are on board with this project?
So the Ministry of Health has been fantastic in terms of, they saw the proposal, the Chief Medical Officer thought this was an excellent idea, she was immediately on board. We have the CHEF, Caribbean Health Education Foundation. 3 US-based nephrologists would also be traveling with a group of about 10 volunteers. We have the SVG Dialysis Association locally. We have the Diabetes and Hypertension Society. We have the medical schools. They also have volunteers. And Girl Guides Association has also offered their services for the days of screening. So it would happen over a 4-day course in early August, and we want to use 2 screening venues, one in Kingston and one on the windward side of the island. Those in Kingston, hopefully we could have persons from the Grenadines as well as the leeward side of the island come to the Kingston Center, and we would have one on the windward side, catering for persons on the windward side of the island. Each day we look to screen about 1,000 persons, between 800 and 1,000 persons, and then from there get about 2,000 persons screened for kidney disease.
Okay, so persons listening to this interview who may want to come on board to assist in sponsorship, whether by, you know, contribution in terms of cash or kind, or in terms of volunteering, and how can they go about doing that?
So they can contact me directly. My email is twanz@hotmail.com, twanz@hotmail.com. We have persons who have indicated that they are interested, those who have met me and said, hey, this is an excellent project, we're happy to see this coming on board in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What can we do to facilitate the project? And, you know, little things that we thought necessary are to host the team coming, because it's a group of about 10 persons and they would be here for a total of 5 days. Okay. So this is not free. These are persons who have volunteered of their time, and they're world-renowned nephrologists. They're volunteered, they're paying their passage, all the screening equipment, standardized laboratory testing equipment, that's being brought in on their terms, in terms of who's paying for them to bring in their equipment and so forth. They have footed that cost. So I think we should host them, and this is an excellent project for us in Vincent and the Grenadines, and I'm excited about this. So in future years, we can say, look, in 2015, we had a screening project. This is the burden of disease. This is what we need to plan for in our healthcare and in our proposals. These are the number of persons. And we may realize that it's not a bigger problem as we thought it was, or it's a bigger problem than it thought it was. What they're actually hoping to do is blood pressure monitoring, blood glucose monitoring. They would also be doing the hemoglobin A1C, which is a blood test that would tell you how your blood sugar has been controlled for the last 3 months. So, sometimes people say, Doc, it's just this one high, it's usually well controlled. No, we'll be doing the last 3 months to see what the assessment is. They would be doing urine testing to see if you have proteins in the urine as well. And they will also be doing creatinine level, which is a blood test that we use for monitoring the kidney function.
So this country stands to benefit in many ways, both the different pharmacies, different agencies, the hospital itself, the people here. So for persons who may not know who a nephrologist is, could you just state? A
nephrologist is a kidney specialist, and the role of a nephrologist is, one, they learn the normal functions of the kidney. They learn pathology of the kidney or abnormalities of the kidney, and they also learn how to treat kidney diseases. All right. Some of them we refer to a surgeon if they require a surgeon. That would be the urology arm of it. But really kidney diseases, and I tell people, nephrologists, they have to be all-rounded physicians, because the common causes of kidney disease are basically the things that you see commonly: the diabetes, the hypertension, the sickle cell disease, the HIV, the very bad congestive heart failure. So all of these are incorporated. The non-communicable diseases all cause the chronic kidney disease, and they're a part of it, and that's what I do.
Why age range from 18 and older? Persons younger than that don't suffer from?
They can suffer from chronic kidney disease, but they tend to be congenital abnormalities where the anatomy of the urinary system is abnormal. All right. So we're looking for persons who have complications of a chronic medical illness that we want to detect earlier. A lot of the other issues would have been dealt with early in childhood because they manifest at an earlier age. But we just really deal with the adult screening at this point.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would want to say to Vincentians or persons who may be watching this interview in relation to this team coming to St. Vincent?
So persons who are interested, and I'm sure a lot of people who meet the criteria based on what we said would say, hey, I want to get screened. We recommend that you go to your local district clinics or your private care practitioners and have your name put down on a list. We'll be collecting that list, and hopefully we could tell you which is the screening location closest to you and what days and times you should get to that screening location, and then we go from there.
So again, for persons who may be interested in getting screened, where they can go is
your private care physician, your district medical office, or if you're already a patient at the hospital, just indicate your interest to your internist or your general practitioner or the hospital staff if you're a patient in the hospital right now. But we're really looking for the outpatients, because we don't want you to be sick at the time, because we want to have an idea of the disease in what we call the quote-unquote well population, that those who are not acutely ill. Those are the person. 18 years, diabetes, high blood pressure, family history of chronic kidney disease, sickle cell disease, if you have lupus, those are the persons that we want to really target. Or HIV, yes. Those are the persons we really want to target and have them checked to see where they are. There will be 3 nephrologists on hand if we see, because the blood tests really, we get the results in 3 to 5 minutes. So if needs be, you would have official consultation there, and we already have a system of getting you registered and making a renal database that was already created for the Caribbean renal database, and just adding your names to the list so we could keep track of you and really and truly prevent the progression of disease and identify any risk factors and treat if necessary, and then we go from there.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it for this edition. Thank you so much for viewing, and remember you can join us every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 in the evening and on Saturdays at 5. To enjoy the rest of your night, good night. I'm Kathy Rose.